Good afternoon, everyone, or morning, depending on where you're calling in from. Welcome to TSNN Webinar Series. Today's topic is Unleashing Your Show Participants to Become Energized Word-of-Mouth Influencers. And we'd like to thank our sponsors, MarketArt and ShowNets, for bringing this presentation to you. MarketArt's You Are Here web, mobile, and floor solutions help give your attendees a great experience. They'll talk about with others year after year. The You Are Here solution helps you deliver everything your attendees need to enjoy your event and maximize productivity, including user-friendly interactive maps and directories, breakout session schedules and maps, agenda and planning tools, and social media matching and messaging. Find out how MarketArt helps make shows better for attendees. You can visit them at MarketArtcom to take a closer look. Also, ShowNets provides custom trade show internet services that allow event producers and coordinators to have a successful event. Hi, my name's Hillary, and I'm going to be your webinar host today. And I'd like to take a couple of seconds to go over some tips using the webinar platform. If you haven't used GoTo before, please note on the control panel, which is on the upper right-hand side of your desktop, there's an area called Audio. Click the correct icon. Either use telephone if you called in today, or use mic and speakers if you're using your desktop. Also, we will take questions throughout the presentation today, so please go into the, well, it's not the chat area, but it's the question area. It'll look just like this. Type in your questions there, hit send, and then I'll get them and read them aloud as we get them. And also, if this panel is a bit distracting, you can go to the top upper left of it, click the double arrow key. That'll minimize the panel, and then if later you want to ask a question, just click it again, and that question area will reappear. And also, if you want to follow us on Twitter or ask questions on Twitter, it's hashtag Attendex, A-T-T-E-N-D-E-X. Now, this is a live and interactive program, so remember you can ask questions throughout, but we're also going to record the session, and a copy of the presentation slide deck and the recording of the session will be available on tsnn.com within 2 working days. And now I'd like to introduce today's speaker, Jeff Hurt. He's worked in nonprofit and hospitality arena for more than 20 years in education and events. And he's planned meetings and trade shows in various sizes from 25 to 35,000, and currently serves as the Director of Education Engagement for Velvet Chainsaw Consulting. And he blogs for VCC's Mid-Course Corrections about meetings, education, and social media. So with that, I'm going to turn the floor over to Jeff. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Hillary.
Sure.
And also, just so you know, Hillary has a sidekick working beside her today, and her name's Lynn. So if you guys want to type in "Hi, Lynn," you can do that as well. She's over there ready for Turkey Day. I don't know about you, but just a couple days, and I crave turkey all the time. So that's just kind of a sidebar. Unleash your show participants to become energized word-of-mouth influencers is what we're going to talk about today. And I want to thank you very much for your time. You know you had a choice, and hopefully this webinar, this presentation will be engaging enough to keep you away from some distractions that you might be occurring on your computer while you're watching this. I always start all presentations with a presenter-attendee agreement. I'd like to make an agreement with you and hope that you'll make the same agreement with me. And in this presenter-attendee agreement, first off is the law of the click. If this presentation doesn't meet your needs, if we veer off in a direction that goes someplace that you're not happy with, you have the right to click out of it and do something that's more entertaining for you or engages your intention or that you find more value. In my presenter-attendee agreement, I also want to welcome texting and typing during this presentation. And if you are going to use Twitter, remember it's AttendEX, which stands for Attendee Experience, AttendEX. If you are going to use the hashtag in Twitter, which I'm also following, as well as Lynn and Hillary are following, if you would tweet unto others as you would have them tweet unto you first, I'm going to ask in this presenter-attendee agreement. And then I'm going to ask that you tweet something good before you tweet something bad. Then you're completely allowed to disagree with me, argue, whatever. Call me a fool, whatever you'd like. Call me a turkey for Turkey Day if you want. In this presenter-attendee agreement, I'm going to ask that we seek first to understand and that this is a safe space to agree, to disagree, ponder, and question. So, a little about me. If you know me, then you and you've been at a presentation I've done before, you know about this. This is often how I feel when I wake up in the morning. I am a coal miner's grandson. I was born in the hills of West Virginia in a small town that had black snow because of all the coal dust. I can remember my parents actually, to get to the house where we lived, you had to cross one of those swinging bridges. My mother has 21 brothers and sisters still alive. Yes, we are true West Virginia hillbillies. And it's been interesting as the holidays are approaching. Obviously, we're not going back to West Virginia for Thanksgiving, but a lot of my relatives have been chiming in on Facebook, talking to us and giving me stories of past holiday events. I'm a nonprofit junkie. I've worked in the nonprofit sector for 20-plus years. I'm an environmental advocate because you're going to see some organizations I've worked for in the environmental arena. I'm a meeting and event professional, and my trade is actually education. So I've always planned meetings, events, trade shows with an eye towards the education experience. I've used the lens of learning. There's some of the organizations I've worked for in the past. One of them you probably know for sure, MPI, Meeting Professionals International. I did work there. You'll see a couple of environmental organizations. Promotional Products Association International is the largest organization I worked for. That event at that time had 35,000. Of course, it was in the top 50 shows in the nation. I now work for Velvet Chainsaw. Many of you know my boss, Dave Lutz. It's just the two of us. I'm the Director of Education and Engagement. And if you are going to be tweeting, there's my Twitter avatar as well as my Twitter URL identity that you can use and attribute something to me if you'd like. What are we going to talk about? We're going to define influencers. We're going to look at mass connectors and mass mavens. We're going to identify a 4-step process to empower conference and show attendees, how we go about doing that. And we're going to discuss peer influence and customer satisfaction and what all this has to do with word of mouth. So we'll start off with United Breaks Guitars. I'm sure many of you have heard the story of David Carroll, who had a $3,500 Taylor guitar that got broken on one of his trips by United handlers. And the repair to his guitar was only going to cost $1,200. And he wanted United to pay for it. United refused to pay for that, the repairs to that guitar. So David got really frustrated going through the normal channels, and he instead created a music video. He actually is part of a band, and he spent $150 to create this music video called United Breaks Guitars. And as soon as he put it up on the internet, within the first 24 hours, he had 25,000 views of that video. And what was very interesting is when you look at that video today, there have been more than 9 million views. And David has had over 250 media interviews all about United Breaks Guitars. Now, I don't know about you, but that's some pretty good ROI. And United could have avoided a lot of that. And what's really interesting is that when you look at the data, well, what happened to United? What actually did it do? Well, the positive sentiment in social media networks decreased from 34% to 28%, so it went down. And the negative sentiment about United Airlines increased from 22% to 25%. And then the positive traditional stories in traditional media dropped from 39% to 27%, while the negative stories about United increased from 18% to 23%. And 6 months after the story broke, United PR continued to receive requests to talk about this incident. It just kept going, and here we are still talking about it today. And so, you know, what's very interesting about this, and when we think about influencers, in the book, The Clue Train Manifesto, the authors of that book said, you know, we want you to take 50 million of us as seriously as you take one reporter from the Wall Street Journal. And today with social media, social networking, social technology, there is, one person can have a lot of impact. And how do we look at this? Well, often we look at impressions. When we're going to look at the influence of marketing or advertising, I like to use some of the jargon. I like to use some of the data and some of the very same language that marketers use. And impressions are the number of views people see. Marketers count the number of views people receive, and one ad campaign might create, 7 million impressions. And the cost of that one ad campaign can be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that's really interesting when you think about United Breaks guitars had more than 9 million impressions and only cost $150 to make. So individuals today online create 256 billion impressions, they receive 256 billion impressions about products and services on a yearly basis. And individuals create 1.64 billion posts, blog posts, comments, ratings, reviews, which leads to more than 250 billion impressions each year. Now that's a tremendous amount of information that individuals have, and they have a lot of influence. And what does that equal to? It equals to 500 billion U.S. impressions, which comes down to 8 impressions for every person online. That's 1/4 as many from each other as from online advertisers. And so the question that I have for you, and it's a rhetorical question, which impressions do people give more attention to? Do they give more attention to the impressions from brands, or do they give more attention to impressions from individuals that they know? Well, obviously, the obvious answer is the people that they know. So we're looking at word of mouth. This is consumers providing information to other consumers. And word of mouth marketing is giving people a reason to talk about your product and your services and making it easier for that conversation to take place. In the trade show space, this would be about potential attendees talking to other potential attendees about your upcoming show and whether or not they're going to attend or what's going to happen at that show. And word of mouth is the art and science of building active, mutually beneficial consumer-to-consumer and consumer-to-marketer communications. So word of mouth is the voice of your customer. Think of word of mouth as the voice of your prospect, your potential registrant. Think of it also as the word of mouth of those that have already registered for your show. It's a natural, genuine process, and it's people seeking advice from other like-minded people. Word of mouth focuses on providing good customer service first. When we talk about word of mouth, it can be encouraged. Word of mouth can be facilitated. Word of mouth empowers others to share experiences. It focuses on that good customer service, and it acknowledges unsatisfied customers are equally as powerful. United didn't acknowledge that David Carroll, as an unsatisfied customer, had quite a bit of power behind him. They look back on that, of course, and think differently today. And what's also very interesting is United actually even uses the whole David Carroll experience now in their own training in their PR departments and marketing departments. What's interesting about word of mouth is it cannot be faked or invented. As consumers, we know when somebody's spinning us. We know when it's fake or false. And attempting to fake word of mouth is not only unethical, but it can create a damaging backlash. And it can tarnish a reputation very quickly and very easily. So that is just kind of what word of mouth is. And Hillary, I doubt there's any questions yet, but I just thought I'd throw that out there to see if any questions have come in or see if Lynn has seen anything online and Twitter about word of mouth so far. I'm not hearing you, so I'm going to...
I haven't had any questions just yet, but let me ask you, should you speak in more of a professional or personal voice?
You know, it's a great question, Hillary, and I would say both. I would say use both voices, but I also think when you're dealing with word of mouth and you're dealing when you're dealing consumer to business or whatever, be real. And when you're talking about show, your upcoming trade show, your upcoming exhibits, you know, give the people in your company a personal identity. Let them to talk to others as Joe at X and X Corporation or Sue at XYZ organization. Let them have a face and a personality, because your prospects will appreciate that a lot more than when they're talking with a particular brand, or they don't know who's there. And if you have one account in social media which several people are using, for instance in a Twitter account, then figure out a way to put abbreviations at the end of each tweet so people know who it is that's tweeting to them, so that it gives them that personal kind of look. And you can find out a lot more about word of mouth. There's actually an association in Austin, Texas called the Word of Mouth Association that is completely on how to use word of mouth in both the business setting, association, organization setting. And I would strongly encourage you to look up Word of Mouth Association. So let's talk a little bit more about word of mouth. And there are 4 technologies that have created empowered customers. One of them, of course, is the smartphone. And 3 out of 4 consumers in America and 4 out of 5 in Western Europe have a smartphone. And so they think of these devices as mobile information conduits. And the data is quickly showing us that more people will be accessing the internet via mobile devices than they will the traditional laptop. I think it's by the year 2014. And another thing to think about is that video is a technology that is far surpassing graphics and text on the internet. And Cisco estimates that by 2013, video will represent 91% of all the data flowing over the internet. That's very different than today's text and graphic interface. And just kind of as a sidebar for all of you that are trade show organizers on your own, or all of you that are exhibitors, I would highly encourage you to start thinking about using and creating video to market your products and services, to market your show. Because if the internet's moving towards video, we're going to have systems that search video for content, and people are much more comfortable with video. And video does not have to be slickly produced. YouTube has made us all very comfortable with shaky video and grainy video. What we do want to hear is the audio. So think about using video, future marketing, and also on-site as well as post-event, post-show. So that's the second technology that is creating an empowered customer. The third one is cloud computing, and we're hearing a lot about cloud computing today. And these are cloud internet services that are accessible anywhere with a login from a web-connected device. The servers, software, and storage are in the cloud, and cloud computing enables improved system integration, and I apologize about that. My phone is ringing. I'm going to turn that off. And it's also about data exchange, user experience. And this is a great tool for attendee collaboration and online customer service. And we're going to see more and more about cloud computing in the future becoming one of those tools that empowers our customers. And the fourth one, of course, you know about is social networks. And social networks have exploded in a way that your show participants can influence their peers. They can tap into their community for information, and they can spread communication, both positive and negative. So, when we think about influencers, an influencer is a person with greater than average reach or word of mouth impact. An influencer is somebody who's really able to leverage their network, and it's beyond what the average person has. Their word of mouth is really relevant in your marketplace. And they're seen not only as a thought leader, but somebody who has a lot of clout. And I'm not talking about necessarily the online web version clout, but somebody in their minds that's very credible and a trustworthy source. So when we look at influencers, there's 3 types. And Gladwell talked about these in the tipping point. He talked about connectors, he talked about mavens, and he talked about sales influencers. And we're going to look primarily at the mass connectors and the mass mavens. And Forrester Research also has shown that these are the 2 biggest types of empowered influencers. And these are the people that you really want to think about for your next show experience. Those that are mass connectors and those that are the mass mavens. Now, mass connectors, these are people with lots of social network connections. And Forrester says there's 11 million people that would fall into this category. And these 11 million people create 205 billion impressions each year. And they have 18,600 per connection of impressions going on. These people have a lot of influence. They spread a lot of content, and people like to follow them and listen to what they say. They don't necessarily talk to them all the time, but they're definitely following and seeing what they're linking to, what voices they have to say. Now, mass mavens, these are the people like Michelle Bruno, who's tweeting right now, and Michelle Bruno, who did your webinar last week. And she definitely falls into this category because she not only contributes to blogs, she's a blog writer as well as for TSNN. But these mavens, like Michelle, contribute to blogs. They discuss things, they review things, and 80% of their online posts are about products and services. And what's very interesting is there are 24 million people that fall within the mass maven. And, excuse me, there are 7 million people that are considered mass mavens actually by Forrester. And they influence about 24 million people. And they actually post about 1.31 billion posts each year. Google is biased towards these mass mavens because these are the people that are creating a lot of link juice. They're in a lot of discussion forums, and they tend to rank higher in Google. They have opinions, and they love to spread those around and share them with folks. And so as a show organizer, you want to think about how you can connect with these mass mavens. You want to give them exclusive information to share. You want to reach out and build a relationship with these folks. You don't want to do it in a typical PR by just sending them an email and saying, would you post this? You want to start by building a relationship with them first. And as event organizers, as show organizers, you want to think about these individuals as a part of your marketing mix. They're actually marketing channels. These are people who are out there actually influencing. And Tracy Brown is another one who I would consider is definitely a mass maven as well. I know she's tweeting too. So Michelle and Tracy are definitely those type of people who you need to consider as part of your marketing channel. And so I'm going to skip this one. Well, let me back up. Hillary, any questions?
We do have some questions. I'm glad you backed up there.
Sure.
All right. What is the best way to find and recruit mass connectors? Are they different online over on-site connections?
Yeah, they are, and that is a great question, and actually I'm going to give you an answer to that coming up here shortly. I'm actually going to give you some tools to look for to be able to identify and find some of those mass connectors and mass mavens. So it's a great question. I'm going to give you, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 tools that you can look at.
Excellent.
Any other questions there, Hillary?
That's it for now.
Okay, thank you. So let's look at a 4-step way that you can empower event attendees. And the acronym IDEA is a great way to use this. And so you want to start out by identifying mass influencers. You know, who are these people? Who are they and how do we find them? Well, here we go. Alltop.com is one place to go. When you go to alltop.com, think of alltop.com as your digital magazine rack. And when you get to alltop.com, on it will pop up an alphabet across the board. And whatever industry you're in, we'll use trade shows, for instance, for TSNN. We'll use trade shows. When you go to alltop.com, if you go to T, you can click on T and a drop-down box will show up and all these categories will show up and you'll actually see the word trade show. And if you click on that, it will pull up a list of bloggers who have signed up with Alltop, and it will show you the name of their blog and their most 5 recent posts. So you can, whatever industry you're in, if you'll go to alltop.com, you'll quickly see who might be blogging and has listed their blog with Alltop. And that's a great place where people go to find who are some of those influencers. Boardreader.com. You go to boardreader.com and you can actually type in your industry and it will give you names of various organizations, various people that are online that you can then go back and look at their blog or look at their social map and their social influence. Delicious, I think you know. Google Blogs is another one to look at. With Google Blogs, you can type in the industry name, and you can actually then find blogs with googleblogs.com that are being written specifically within your industry. Clout.com is a controversial one, but it's one that I actually think you should take a look at. Clout.com, you can go to it and it will actually pull up a score. You can put in people's names, or you can search by a type of industry or a topical area, and it will pull up who influences in that area. For instance, if you were to go to Clout.com and put in the word blog, search for blog, it will pull up a list of people who influence other people about blogs. And for instance, you would pull up Liz Strauss, and you would see that her Clout score is in the 70 something. I want to say it's 73 or 74. So Clout.com is another place where you can actually find various people who are influencing in your industry. Listorious.com. Listorious is a place where you can find how many lists in Twitter people are listed on. If you go to Listorious.com and let's say you put in the word trade show or the word expo, it would pull up who all's listed in these lists, individual Twitter lists with the word expo with them. I know I have my own Twitter list that I'll label something. I might label them super planners and have a list of people who are super, that I consider are the event organizers that I really like to follow. And Listorious searches all those lists. And in Twitter, the more lists you're in, the more influence that people have in those type of topics. PostRank.com will actually tell you scores about people's blogs. It actually ranks blogs, and particularly in the industry, you can see which blogs have a lot more readership, which ones have more comments, which ones are having more influence. TwitterGrader.com actually scores people's Twitter profiles, how many connections they have, what their reach is, how far their reach goes. And then Tweet Chats is just another one that I would throw out there that is a good one to find out who's out there chatting about what. And Tweet Chats, if you look down at the bottom there, I've given you actually the URL that you can go find. I think there's now more than 500 some chats on a weekly basis in Twitter about various topics. And you might go look and see, is there a tweet chat in something with your industry? I know that there are various tweet chats for meeting planners. I know there's some for trade show people as well. And when you go to a tweet chat, you'll go to tweetchat.com and then put in that hashtag. At the time that tweet chat occurs, you'll find some of the movers and shakers and the top people that are talking about the particular industry. So there's how to identify some mass influencers. So we're back to idea. You want to deliver excellent customer service when you are dealing with this 4-step process to empower event attendees. You want to go out of your way to deliver that fantastic customer service for potential registrants as well as those that have already registered. And you want to empower folks. You want to empower prospects, potential registrants, as well as empower those that have already registered with information. And then you want to amplify your event fans. As your registrants out there begin talking about you, and the ones that are giving out the positive sentiment, the ones that are talking very positively about you, you want to help amplify them. You might think about reposting some of their information. You might think about giving them shout-outs. And so what's very interesting when we think about a show and we want to deliver excellent customer service, we have to think that influence happens after the sale. So it's really critical for you to think hard and strongly about those people who have already registered for your event. After they've registered for that, don't stop there. Think about, are you empowering that registrant? Are you supporting that registrant? has that registrant become a delighted fan because they can influence others to attend your event. Once they've registered, don't forget about them. Think about ways to engage them so that they become one of your broadcasters, so that they become one of your customer evangelists who's out there talking about your event experience. You know, good service creates happiness, and the more touch points and the more reasons for the customers to feel good about your organization that you create, the better it is for you, because the more they're going to talk about you. And I often say, if nobody's talking about your show online, did it really happen? Because in today's society, particularly Gen Ys, we're living in the age of the sharing economy. Gen Ys carry their friends with them in their pockets. And they want to be sharing the experience that they're having at your show, if it's positive, with their friends. And they want to be sharing about it online. So you have to constantly be thinking about, how do we empower people after they've registered so that they can continue to talk about us online and put out their more positive word of mouth and broadcast the praises of what's going on at the event. If your show is a stellar experience, people are going to be sharing it online. If your show is a dud, more than likely people aren't going to be sharing it online, or if they are, they're going to be sharing things like, Joe, good thing you didn't come to this. This was a total waste of my time, which is not really what you want online. You want positive engagement. You want that positive word of mouth. So you have to remember also, if you do get some negative sentiment out there, that word of mouth acknowledges unsatisfied customers are equally as powerful as satisfied ones. And so you have to think about, how are we going to actually handle negative sentiment out there online? And are we going to ignore it? Are we going to respond to it? And I would actually submit to you that you should respond to that negative sentiment. Reach out to it when things are not going well and dig a little deeper. If it gets really offensive or something of that nature, then try to take it offline. But everybody else is watching how you're going to respond to negative and unsatisfied customers online just as much as they're watching how you respond to the positive ones. So while it makes a lot of common sense, yes, Tracy, it is so obvious, that we don't really see a lot of show organizers or event planners actually acknowledging the unsatisfied customers as well. And I actually think that will get you a lot of positive sentiment when you do that. So I know I talked kind of fast. I've talked about influencers. We've talked about mass connectors. We've talked about mass mavens. We identified a 4-step process to empower conference attendees, and it was IDEA was the acronym for that. And we've looked at peer influence and customer satisfaction. So I want to thank you for your time, but I want to give you this because I get asked this all the time. Where in the world did I get all this information? And here are my sources that would be important to you. I would highly recommend you to look at the book Empowered. Go buy that one by Josh Bernoff and Ted Shadler. It's an easy read. Also, follow Forrester. Forrester's North American Technographs. This was data from their 2009 fourth quarter. And all these images, people love the Star Wars images. They're photos by Stefan Ledoux. They're actually in Flickr. And then WOMA. You definitely want to go look at WOMA, the Word of Mouth Marketing Association. So, Lynn and Hillary, what other questions do you have that may have come in? Do I need to back up and show something again?
Well, I'm going to keep you on your slide deck for a little bit just in case. But I do have to tell you that you're getting a lot of feedback on Twitter about your Star Wars. What does it say, Liz? Where do you get all your toys? They want to know.
Well, unfortunately, those aren't mine. Those were actually images in Flickr that I used that the guy by the name of Stefan, I forgot his last name right now, Stefan Ledoux, actually put up online in Flickr. And I searched in Flickr something called Comp Fight. compfight.com, compfight, compfight.com. That searches Flickr and searches Creative Commons, which means that when people upload images and they say it's Creative Commons, they're giving people the right to use those images as long as they're not selling them. And that's where I got all these images. I wish I had taken those pictures, but I didn't. Stefan did.
They were a lot of fun. So
they're fun, aren't they? They're lots of fun.
All right. Well, here's a question for you, because you were talking about reacting to negative feedback. How do you know when and how to reach out to the negative feedback so it doesn't come off as defensive?
I think it's when you see some negative sentiment come across, you really have to make some judgment calls. And if it's as simple as, this speaker is really boring me, or something of that nature, then I think you can come across as saying, you respond to them in Twitter, might say, Michelle, I'm really sorry to hear that. I'd like to hear more. Can you send me an email, or can we meet somewhere, and I'd like to hear more about what your thoughts are. And I think that's a way to do it, and it doesn't come across as being defensive. If there are lots of tweets, or there are lots of posts in Facebook, or even in LinkedIn, or somewhere out there, or there's lots of people saying some harsh things, and there's a thread, there's actually a pattern to it, then I think it really behooves the event organizers to say, we hear you. We agree we made some missteps here. We're working on this for the future. We'd love some advice on how we can do things differently. And so I think that's the way to respond. You have to be authentic. Sometimes it's as simple as, ouch, the truth hurts, and letting people know that you got it and you're with them. Okay.
And we have another question that Liz has shown me on Twitter. Is word of mouth only useful for pushing messages out?
Oh, Tracy. Michelle, that's a good question. I think word of mouth is good for pull methods. I think I think that it's really about when you have people who are influencers and they really like your show, and they're out there writing about your show. I think it then becomes a pull strategy where they start asking questions of other people. And I think too we have to think about word of mouth like this. There may be people who are not at your show that are following what's being said about your show online, and they may follow, for instance, Michelle says something positive about a show that she attended, and they may reach out to Michelle publicly online and say, Michelle, what were your 2 or 3 takeaways from the show? I can't be there. Tell me more. And then it becomes this engagement strategy where the influencers are actually pulling people into conversations about your show for you, and you're not having to do it at all. And Michelle, if you have some other recommendations on how to use word of mouth as push, what I would recommend is that you actually post a couple for us in Twitter, since you're using the hashtag. Post some of your thoughts about how to use word of mouth for engagement strategies and to pull people in as pull marketing instead of just straight push marketing.
And just as a reminder for everybody, if you want to follow on there, it's hashtag Attendex, ATTENDX. Going back to our question area, Jeff, here's a question for you from a little earlier. You stated that consumers prefer friends over brands. Is it really that simple, and don't we segment enough to divide those messages? Wouldn't it be better to recognize timelines during the competition of mindshare?
Read the last part of that question for me again.
Sure.
That was
a lot of stuff in there. Don't we segment enough to divide those messages, and wouldn't it be better to recognize timeliness during the competition of mindshare?
Wow, that's a loaded question. I do think it's important to segment the audience, and I think that in the event and trade show industry, we've gotten used to a one-size-fits-all type of marketing approach. And I really think we need to segment it based on what our prospects value. What is it they value about the show experience? And everybody's a little bit different. And then I think we have to design messages differently based on that. When it comes to word of mouth, marketing, I do think we need to look. I know for me personally that, I would give Michelle and Tracy more clout than I would an ad that I am going to see online. And we always did it before. We just picked up the phone and called somebody and said, did you go to such and such show last year? How was it? Is it worth my money? And instead today it's just happening in real time online. So I do think we have to look real critically at that. And we also have to remember, though, that, once they've registered it and when they're on site, they still have a lot of influence. And the last thing you want to happen on site during a show is for your attendees to hijack the experience because it's going south for them. And that's when show organizers really should be following the Twitter stream even more importantly to see, do I need to be making some mid-course corrections right here, right now to change this experience for folks so that they walk away with positive sentiment saying, okay, that was the best thing since sliced bread. And it's not just the Michelle and Tracy show, folks. It's also New Renaissance. I see New Renaissance and was tweeting and seeing some people retweeting, and also, of course, TA Awards, but I'm wondering if that is Rachel. Rachel, is that you, TA Awards?
Well, while we wait for an answer on that, I'll go to my next question that came through the platform here. Isn't the estimated Cisco data percent more of a size of statistics, not a volume measurement?
I'm not. It is not a volume measurement. I've heard from other sources, not just Cisco, that video online is overtaking the internet. It's not just from Cisco. That primarily what's going to be, and I'm assuming that's what the question is in reference to, that the internet is going to be more video driven than text and graphics. That's kind of I'm trying to think who else right off the bat. I've heard Forrester say that. I've actually heard Gartner Research say that. So it's not just a statistic from Cisco about volume. Am I getting that right, Lynn? I mean, Hillary?
I think so, but we can ask the person who asked the question to clear that up a little bit if they want to go ask deeper of that. And while I'm looking in the question box, will the recording be available? Yes, within 2 days on tsnn.com. And back over to Twitter from TA Awards, how do you engage people through a brand rather than just marketing to them? Can a brand be your friend?
I find, let's use Dell as an example. We'll use Dell Computers. I think Dell Computers does a great job of engaging folks. And what they do is they empower their employees, Joe at Dell, to actually talk to consumers online. And in that particular situation, Joe becomes, the face, and he's the one that engages with people online. Where I previously worked, before I worked for Velvet Chainsaw, one of my colleagues and buddies there, Joe Flowers, was our person who handled our Twitter account at NADP, and it was very interesting because his Twitter handle was Joe at NADP, and so he would engage with folks, particularly before our annual meeting and our annual show, and people knew it as Joe. And what was very interesting about it, Joe eventually left NADP. He now works for Frito-Lay. And Joe actually runs Frito-Lay's social media campaigns on Facebook and in Twitter. And when you talk with him, it's Joe. Joe's very upfront about, this is who I am. But in both situations, if he were to leave Frito-Lay right now, his account would stay there, and they can change the account name to Sue at Frito-Lay. And so it gives people the information that, Joe's no longer here, but we're going to continue this dialogue. So, Rachel, I do think a brand, but I think it's about personifying that brand and actually giving that brand some humanness. And it's about letting people talk with people. I like to talk with people. When I'm tweeting with a brand online, I typically will say, who am I talking with? Instead of organization X or corporation B, who is this?
Right.
And then I will come right out and say, will you be behind this count all the time, or there are several of you? Twitter is a good example. Twitter, when they do Twitter help, everybody actually uses an abbreviation at the end of their tweet, so you know who you're talking to. Hootsuite Help is another one. If you go to Hootsuite Help in Twitter, you'll find in their background actually the pictures and the abbreviations on their background page for their Twitter account of who each of the individual people are, so that you can engage with them. And I think sometimes it's as simple as engaging, asking questions and being authentic of folks, not just asking questions just for engagement's sake, but having real conversations with folks. Anything else? Tracy Brown says she has a bunch of brands that are friends because she got to know the person behind the brand. I think you'll find that in several places.
Okay, good. Well, if your goal is to become a mass connector, what do you recommend as a first step?
Oh, wow. If you want to be a mass connector, my hat's off to you. Be prepared to spend some time. If you want to become a mass connector, the first thing I would highly recommend is you need your own blog. You need to have a voice. You need to have an opinion. And you need to be putting your opinion out there, not afraid of doing that. I would also say that a good way people actually start connecting with one another is actually reading blogs in the industry where you want to be seen as an influencer or seen as a thought leader, and leaving comments on other people's blogs and actually having discussions. Getting involved in tweet chats is a great place to start connecting with other people so that you can learn what their thoughts are as well. And I would say, it's really about sharing resources and information more than being seen as a thought leader. You have to be authentic that you really want to help people, and you really want to share with people and share ideas, share other people's content. I know that that's what I do a whole lot in Twitter is I share other people's content because I'm trying to be helpful. So what else?
Well, I think that's about it for the questions, but I just put up your contact information in case people have questions later. So it's jhurt@velvetchainsaw.com or at Twitter @JeffHurt, and also your website's velvetchainsaw.com, right?
Yep, that's it.
Terrific. All right, well.
And I used a "You Are Here" sign there.
You are here? Okay. Very good. Well, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us, and I'd also like to thank our sponsors, MarketArt and ShowNets, for bringing this presentation to you. MarketArt, You Are Here has been trusted by over 100 of the best events and trade shows in the world, and you can find out how they help make shows better for attendees by visiting them at MarketArtcom to take a closer look. And ShowNets, who provide custom trade show internet services, allow event producers and coordinators to have a successful event. Well, I took a little bit of advice of yours, Jeff, and I'm giving today's folks that are listening in some exclusive information. It's not listed yet on tsnn.com, but our next webinar will be December 16th, Creating a Networking Culture, with Tom Singer, who's called the Conference Catalyst.
Great guy. Great guy.
Well, good to plug that, and a few things. It's going to be talking about human-to-human connectivity at events, the power of hello and getting attendees talking on a deeper level, and getting more excited about using social media as a networking tool during the conferences. So that should be a very interesting program. I hope you'll write it down in your calendar, and we'll have more information. Also, if you're going to be in Vegas December 6th or the 8th, you can meet MarketArt in person at booth number 922 at the IAEE Expo, and you can visit us, TSNN, at booth number 836 at the same show. So we hope to see you there, and thank you everyone for joining us today. As a reminder, this session was recorded, and we will have the recording and the slide deck available within 2 days on tsnn.com. And tune in to tsn.com for updates on our webinar series. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Have a wonderful afternoon, and happy Thanksgiving. Don't eat too much turkey, Jeff.
Okay, thank you. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Bye now.
Bye.